It is what, September 16th? September
It is
16th,
indeed.
yes. And this is Yvonne DeVita. And I'm going to ask you, ladies, you're in quarantine. The whole world is in quarantine of some sort or another. And as you do what you do in quarantine, especially those of you who work out of the home if you were not in quarantine, or those of you who work remotely, what do you do about your wardrobe? Are you aware of the concept of I'll get it out, Carol, sustainability around the clothes that you wear, what you buy, and a whole boatload of other things? I don't think that we do, Carol. I think for the most part, we just accept that we can go to the store, even the thrift shop. I have a thrift shop near me, and I go and pick up things there for $3, $4, $5. And that's what we do, isn't it? So we're going to talk about that today with my guest on Smart Women Conversations. Her name is Carol Hanson. She's been a guest previously. I will share the link to that one also. But Carol, when I saw the many, many things that you were posting on Facebook about the sustainability, you're from the UK, so it's a little different there. But in the end, it's about human beings. Mm-hmm. And I will say women a lot, because we tend to like to have a big closet full of clothes and lots of shoes. Not that some men don't do the same thing, they do. But there's so much more that we're missing that's going on in the background, and I want to talk about that today. So Carol Hanson, welcome. Let's talk sustainability in fashion.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's great to be back here again and talking to you. But in fact, you're very right that it does, in the whole fashion industry, impacts women an awful lot more, because about 80% of garment workers are also women. So not only are we probably the biggest consumers of fashion, but we're also, in terms of numbers of people, we certainly outweigh men in terms of the women that work within the industry. But the global fashion industry is enormous. It's an enormous revenue earner. It's a contributor to global domestic product in many countries. It is the main form of income for many countries as well. So, but it's also become the second biggest polluting industry in the world, after the oil and aviation industries. And the global fashion sector is currently generating more emissions each year than the whole of the United Kingdom, Germany, and France combined. And it's going to fail to align with the Paris Agreement without transformational change over the next decade. And that is from an article in a brilliant news publication that you can subscribe to, and I suggest we pop the link in the notes for this, which is called Edie, which talks in very stark terms, but also in very positive terms, about some of the great actions that are taking place around the world at the moment. And in this particular report, Edie were talking about a combined report that had been published by McKinsey, the global consulting firm, and the Global Fashion Agenda. And it identified 3 areas to tackle, which I thought was quite amusing, because it's basically looking at those 3 areas as being the main parts of the supply chain from start to finish, when you have a linear supply chain, which is what the fashion industry currently is. So it talks about the upstream supply chain. Now it's looking at it, what do I mean by an upstream supply chain? It sounds a bit techie speak, doesn't it? But it's basically saying that from the brand position, the upstream is the manufacturing side. So that's an area that needs to change, because obviously that uses an awful lot of energy and there is a lot of waste in there. It then talks about direct operations, which again is the brands themselves. So that is talking about production that they commission It talks about the logistics and distribution of products as well, and also the brands themselves becoming more conscious about renewable energy. But the main issue is really about waste and overproduction. Because brands, let's face it, fashion brands are being driven by shareholders or owners who are looking to grow their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So consumer and business growth model. And also there's us as consumers, we have a huge responsibility to apply here. And you can say, well, is it a chicken and egg? Is it that people are overproducing? Is it that we're overbuying? Where is the fault lying? Well, let's forget about faults. Let's instead look at how we can pick apart and solve the problem right through the supply chain from cradle to grave, effectively.
So Carol, let me just interrupt for a minute here and talk
Sure.
about brands in and of themselves, because is something that you sent me that I'm looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about how so much ends up on the cutting room floor. 15% of all textiles end up on the cutting room floor. And so that is when the brand is creating the product or the design. And we need to understand from our end as consumers that here's what went into making that particular item of clothing that is now going to be shipped to all of these wholesalers to sell to the consumer. And the fact is the brand and the wholesaler, they both have to make money somehow, right?
Of course, absolutely.
So they make it off of us. And this is where I love that you're going with this conversation, because we think we don't have any power. We think, oh, it's, what am I supposed to do? I'm just little old me sitting here. Well, let's talk about that, because there is power in being the consumer.
There is power in being the consumer. There is power in being able to decide where we buy from, whether we buy from brands that put people and the planet first. So we have a choice about where we buy from, because you're quite right. I mean, the waste starts effectively on the cutting room floor. To say that 15% of all textiles that are manufactured ends up as scraps on the cutting room floor, it's horrific if you think about it really is. And then you think about how many items of clothing are produced annually. Can you guess how many? I mean, I sent you the figures, but so you got a head start on that. But it's for everyone who's watching this, it is 100 billion items of clothing are produced annually, and 40% of that gets marked down, so gets discounted because it's not selling at full price. Well, you could say part of your argument may be that it's overpriced, but the majority of the reason why it's not selling, overproduction.
Yeah.
And again, this comes back to greed, if you like to put it in those terms, but it also comes back to how many goods are being produced and the fact that we don't actually need all of these goods, but the brands are commissioning them because they want to grow their business.
Yes, it's a circle. It's an awful circle of brand to wholesaler to consumer, and consumer wants something else. Consumer isn't, has bought 3 or 4 or whatever of these, doesn't want it anymore. It gets marked down. It goes to my well, it doesn't go to my thrift shop because those are from people's closets, but still, same thing. People take it out of their closet. It's astonishing to me, and I'm guilty of this, so I hate to even admit it, but we buy things that we never wear, and they sit in our closet with the tag on them. Over the summer, when my daughter lived with me, she's been diligent about working out and dieting, and she's lost quite a bit of weight. And so a dress that I bought the year before when we went on vacation together and didn't fit her, now fits her. But it still had the tag on it, Carol, because I didn't wear it. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
I think to some degree, I think most of us would say that we're guilty in some area of that overconsumption, that we don't stop and think before we buy. And a lot of the reason for that is, and this sounds ironic, but is that our closets have got too much stuff in them. And when you have too much stuff in something, and you go and look at it, you don't see it clearly. And it comes back to that decluttering and keeping something decluttered as well, so that you maximize the use from it, is so much better than losing that connection with what you've got, and then but ending up buying something new. Because how often do we go out, as you said, that dress that you bought for going on holiday, how often do we go out and buy something new rather than really go into our wardrobes and look at it and say, what have we actually got that we could wear?
Yes, well, and also we talked earlier before we started the show a little bit about how it's so easy, and we have made it that way. And let's say 200, 300 years ago, people wore clothes till they fell apart because it wasn't easy just to go down to the local department store and pick up something new. And it became easier. Maybe partly you and I agree on this because women started working and they didn't have time to do all the, the repairing or updating or even laundry. I mean, how often do you need to do laundry? Maybe we do laundry too much. Maybe it's not necessary. I personally wear things for 2 or 3 days before I launder. And I do it because I don't sweat a lot. I'm not, especially now, I'm not out in public a whole lot. And so it seems unnecessary to me to launder something, because I do think about laundering it makes it gradually fall apart.
Laundering will have several impacts on it. I mean, it will start breaking the fibers down, and that's how we end up with microfibers that get into the water supply as well. So there's that element of it, but it breaks the fibers down. The more vibrations that you get going on within your washing machine, the more friction you're creating, and therefore, as I said, you get this fiber breakdown. You also will lose color. Even if it's very gradual, you'll start losing color in items. And generally, yes, they will deteriorate. And how often do we, and I know I've been guilty of this, particularly when I was working in corporate, you just throw a load of laundry on and you don't kind of separate or take care of it so much. You just put it all on at a 40 degree wash or whatever, rather than going, hang on a second, those should really be washed at this temperature and for this cycle, versus just throw it all in and put it on a general wash, which doesn't obviously do things any good. And then we go and we want our clothes to smell nice, so we end up using fabric conditioners, and fabric conditioners don't help the longevity of our clothes either, because they coat it with this kind of film that makes it smell nice but doesn't do the fabric any good in that sense. So again, something else we should be looking at. And I've just transferred to a fabric conditioner, which is actually a Canadian brand, and that packet gives me a month's worth of wash. See how slim it is? It's an envelope.
Yeah.
And let me just show you, because it's amazing. That is one load of washing.
Wow.
And what you do is just simply tear the strip up, put it in your in with your load or in the soap dispenser drawer, depending on what type of washing machine that you've got. And the clothes come out smelling lovely and feel lovely. And how brilliant is that? So think how bulky your washing detergent is, and you've got to transport it around from manufacturer to retail distribution to store to home.
So this replaces the laundry detergent?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Again, we can put a link to True Earth's website maybe in the conversation with this. because it's a brilliant model, and even though it's coming across by post from Canada, I don't think they've got a UK distribution centre yet. It's actually better than all of the bulk of the laundry detergents. As I said, it's the carbon footprint is minimal. There's no, a lot of laundry detergents that you would buy from your supermarket or superstore have an awful lot of fillers in them and ingredients that you probably wouldn't want to be really washing your clothes in. And so again, we're using unnecessary chemicals.
Yes, yes. If we don't know it, here's the here's the key. we don't know it, and when we learn it, if we learn it, we're skeptical. Not, this is my opinion, we're not skeptical because we don't believe it. We're skeptical because it's asking us to change the way we do something, and people don't like change.
Yeah.
And so this seems like a really important message for moms especially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, women who are the ones that do the laundry, or if there are men, sometimes men do the laundry. But the point being that when you have a family and you have kids, the thing you want is convenience. Well, let's sit up, folks, and start paying attention, because that convenience is costing us a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that you sent me was a list of what can we as consumers do. Buy less. I love that one.
I know it sounds so obvious, isn't it? But it is the basic premise of being more sustainable. And I've been putting a few posts out recently and asking people about their attitude to clothes shopping now, and it's really interesting. And it's that so many people are now saying, I'm thinking twice, I'm stopping, I'm not because I'm not encouraged to go out browsing. I don't feel I want to go out browsing with the current environment and stuff, but I'm also thinking twice about whether I need it or not. Now, part of that is environmental, part of it's economic as well. You know, there's so much uncertainty. And also, as we were talking earlier about remote working, that if you're working at home more, you don't need so much in your wardrobe anyway, do you?
No, and
you're not going out socializing as much.
Right. And one of the things that's so powerful that you taught in your last video with me is repurposing what you have in your closet. That is just like, again, it's so obvious as don't buy so much because you really don't need it. But I do think that women especially don't do that a lot because they don't know how. I
agree. And I think there is a market there definitely for learning. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you start Googling repurposing clothes, it will get your juices going if you're a creative person, definitely, to start thinking about what you may be able to do. But you're right, we don't normally think about it. It's easier to go out and buy something new. I mean, I bought a secondhand jumpsuit in lockdown. I decided I needed to treat myself to something. I think we all needed a bit of a lift.
Yes.
And when I got it, I didn't like the color. So I repurposed it straight away by putting it in a washing machine with some black dye.
Well, and it's such an easy kind of thing to do. Also, the other thing is that what you taught me was to look at if for instance you say I think I'm going to go out, I'm going to go shopping.
Yeah.
Because I mean we could do a whole show on why people think shopping is an outing. When did shopping become what it is? Shopping is an outing. Sometimes some people even think grocery shopping is an outing. Now I do grocery shopping, but it's not outing for me. But you go out then, and what you taught me is to look and think and say, what other items in my closet does this go with? So I don't have to buy 3 things, I only buy 1.
Exactly. And that is so important. It's stopping and thinking. It's becoming a more conscious consumer in that sense. And that will in itself slow us down in terms of how much we buy. And I'm also an advocate of buying quality, not quantity.
Mm.
People say, well, I can't afford to buy quality. But if you are spending out, small amounts of cash on a regular basis, and you add that cash up versus what you would pay for something of more quality that you would wear for longer, I think you probably find that it probably costs you less, although the initial outlay is higher. And if you buy quality, it feels better, it looks nicer, it hangs better, the color retains better. It just makes so much more sense to do that. And if you can't afford to buy quality at full price, then, as you say, thrift stores, or as we call them over here in the UK, charity shops, are a great way to pick up quality bargains.
Yes, I actually did get a couple of things at my local thrift shop that looked brand new, looked like whoever bought them had never worn them, and
Absolutely.
they were very nice items.
And I mean, it's also, it's thinking about, you might spend an afternoon deciding that you want to go out browsing or in the malls, or you might want to spend some time looking on the internet for new clothes. Or why not instead spend that time going into your wardrobe and pulling some pieces out and getting your accessories out, or just different items, and just having a play to create different looks. It's just so simple, but we don't do it. We automatic go for something new. We're bored with our wardrobe, but have we actually really gone through our wardrobe and tried it first in terms of putting different things together? And doing that with a friend can also be a great way of doing stuff, and just, or with a relative or whatever, but just doing it and making the time to do it. It's not an indulgence, it's going to save you money, and it's also a much more sustainable approach as well.
The one time years and years ago, I had a girlfriend who had another friend that I knew, but my girlfriend came to me and said, Susan, I don't remember her name. Susan's having a giveaway at her apartment. Well, Susan was one of these people that did have so many things in her closet. She couldn't put anything else in there. And what she had done is pull out all the things that she no longer wanted or couldn't wear or whatever. And she invited people to come and pick through them and take them. And it was astonishing. And I've never forgotten that, because I look at my closet now, and working from home the way I do. And not just the quarantine, because I'm semi-retired now, I don't go out as much. I don't attend a lot of events. So I'm looking at these business clothes that I have, and I'm thinking, what do I do with these? I could sell them. But then again, there's the effort. So what I think is that it's time to start teaching people that the effort is worth it, that there is a value to cleaning out your closet, because you don't need something. So for instance, women who have, let's say, a shirt like this, a nice item like this, and it's hard to match with anything else that I have, because I have a lot of prints. And I was taught growing up that you can't mix. You can today, but back then you didn't mix prints. That was, Carol, that was like unheard of.
Absolutely.
So I have to find something that's just one of the colors in here. Well, I often then rely on black. But the point being that there are, like you said, instead of going out to shop, or instead of shopping on the internet, take that extra time to go to your closet. But also, let's talk a little bit about how that helps, because in the end, what we're trying to create is a sustainable business in the sense of earth friendly, not sustainable in the sense of it's going to last a long time. The conversation here is, how do we save Mother Earth? so that our children and grandchildren can still live here.
Absolutely. And by keeping clothes longer and making more of your clothes, of course you are saving Mother Earth, because you're not manufacturing the textiles to start with to make more clothes. So a collective effort on that would have a big impact on the amount of textiles that are manufactured, the amount of clothes that are manufactured. And you might say, well, I'm just me sitting here in my apartment or my house, and what impact is that going to have? But it's like any movement, that we have to start somewhere, and we have to start collectively. And by increasing awareness about it, and increasing awareness of, with the shocking facts about how much water it takes to manufacture stuff, how much pesticides are used, and so on and so forth, then that can help to generate more awareness, that people start thinking in a different way. And when people start thinking in a different way, then they'll start acting in a different way. So there is a lot of work to be done, I believe. I think, as you and I were saying before we started recording, that we may well be further ahead over here in the UK than perhaps you are in the US in some respects, in the way that we're thinking. It feels as though there is more of a thought process going on, or maybe that's just the bubble I'm in. I hope it's not. But we have to start doing something somewhere. And I am always of a view that if you want to make a massive change, then you don't just start picking at the seams in one place. You start from the ground up, and you start from the top down. Because ideally what you want to be getting to, from a fashion point of view, and this is a term that's talked about a lot in sustainable fashion now, is getting to a circular economy. So with a circular business model, you then start recycling. So when you have finally had enough of your clothes, because let's face it, stuff does wear out. It will get to the point where it doesn't look great anymore, and it needs to go. That it actually goes back, and the fabrics are broken down, the fibers are broken down and reused, as opposed to using what's called virgin fiber, so manufacturing from scratch again. So that is a big thing that is being talked about over here at the moment, but it's going to take years to, for those kind of things to permeate right down to high street or mall level. And so
Carol.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's perfect. But as you were speaking, I was thinking about fashion shows. And especially the, for lack of a better word, the outlandish fashion shows where the models wear items that no one is ever going to buy in a store. No. They're there to showcase the designer's creativity, I guess. And what happens to those clothes afterwards? Because nobody's wearing them. Where do they go?
That's a very interesting point, and I couldn't actually honestly answer that, but it's a really good point. Some items do get sold from fashion shows, but you're right, the majority of the outlandish creations, there are some people that will take stuff and manufacture it, repurpose it into something else, but that is only going to use a fraction of the stuff. You're right, there is waste at every point in the process, whether it is high end or whether it is at the cheaper end of the market, the bargain basement end of the market.
Yeah, it seems, I never really thought that particular thing before, but
it's a really good point.
It seems a shame that we as human beings seem to think it's our just that we deserve to do these things and create these things because, well, this is my creativity and I have to do that. Well, maybe your creativity would be better served making something useful for other people. But that's just putting that out there. And
I think it's a good point. Although on the other side of the coin, there are a lot of sustainable fashion designers coming through now in the fashion shows and showcasing what they are doing to be much more sustainable, and hopefully that is in turn going to influence more students who are studying fashion.
Yes.
So from that point of view, that has got to be a good thing. From that point of view, but as I think we talked about, can't sure if we talked about this on the last recording, but there is a high degree also of greenwashing going on within the fashion industry. So something that sounds sustainable, it sounds great, but when you actually dig below the surface, it's not actually that great. I mean, there's a lot going on about using recycled plastics and recycled plastic bottles in activewear and stuff like that, which is great up to a point. But then what happens at the end of life of that activewear? It's still plastic that's being manufactured. And unless that can be turned into more activewear or another useful product, then it's reached its end of life. So all you're actually doing is extending that life slightly.
Right. I think
so.
that's
It's such a complex subject. It's such a complex area, not helped by the fact that it is such a fragmented industry. You know, you've got brands, you've got manufacturers, you've got supply chain, you've got and then you've got retailers, and then you've got people who buy up secondhand clothes and sell them on. It is so fragmented.
And there are
and nobody seems to have control over it at all.
There are so many jobs involved.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're as human beings, and especially right now here in the US, jobs are huge because of the pandemic has put a lot of people out of work. But one of the things that I'm passionate about, Carol, is trying to get people who are out of work to reimagine their talent, reimagine what they could do, especially if they were a small business owner. I feel so passionately about helping small business owners who have gone out of business because of the pandemic. And so how can you reimagine that business, do some of it online, do some of it through sales, where people don't come in. But the point is that creativity in building new, not building, but in sharing and expounding on new ideas of the way we work, the way we buy, the way we shop, and then this deep background look that you talk about is how do the products you buy get made? And so I do believe that this conversation has to include young people. It has to be put in front of them.
Well, they are one of the biggest consumer groups when it comes to fast fashion, you know, cheap fast fashion. And so therefore you're absolutely right. It has to include younger people within the discussion, because at the end of the day, it's going to be their planet, you know, or what's left of it. And getting their buy-in, because they are the group that will go out there and buy cheap stuff. They want multiples of stuff and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that's every young person, it's not, but the majority, you know, of them will, and they are the biggest consumer group, and that is who the cheaper fashion brands are marketing to. You know, they are appealing to those groups. So new, gotta have this. And you're right, it is really important to be thinking about including them, but you're also absolutely right that jobs are a huge thing over here as well at the moment. Of course they are, and will continue to be so, is getting people to think about transferable skills, which is what you're saying, is thinking outside the box, thinking about what else they can do, and in a sense whether they can do something that is more in line with sustainability and helping provide us a more sustainable planet that they will have to look forward to. Right. That may sound really simplistic and idealistic, but you know, but hey, you have to do some big thinking.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. But also, I think maybe one of the things that should happen is more people should be collaborating. and that's the kind of like what we're doing, because I really feel strongly that your message is something that the people I'm connected to not only should hear, but probably want to hear. I know
Yeah.
that a vast majority of women and even young girls that follow me or read what I do, yes, they will be very interested in this. And, you know, I do, as you know, I do book coaching. So I would love to work on a book that you have, but it, you know, because it will help get that message out in front of people. I can't stress enough to people that when you have a book, people take you more seriously. But the reality is the collaboration. We go back, Carol, maybe you know this book, Blue Ocean Strategy.
No, I have not heard it. Sorry.
I'm going to send you a link to it. So I can't remember the author, and I used to have a copy of it, but the book revolves around the fact that the circus, the Cirque du Soleil, had to do something different. They wanted to be a circus, and this is just very simplistic. The book is much more detailed. And so, but the circus was getting rid of the animals because people like me didn't like the way they were being treated. And so the circus, this group of people said, we have to reinvent that. And they developed Cirque du Soleil.
Right.
So that's what we need. We need more thinking like that to reinvent things that we've done almost without thinking because we're so used to it. It's time to stop, get creative. And while we're doing it, you know, build a more sustainable planet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you all the way.
So this has been great. We have to kind of wind up now. And again, Carol, I love having you. So you have to come back again so we can talk about this some more. You're very active on Facebook with it. And I want people to, I'm going to send them, make sure they have the link to your Facebook page, because I really love the content you post there. It really inspires me. And if there's a way that people here see this and start thinking a little more about the sustainability of what they do in their everyday life, it isn't just fashion. No. We talk fashion primarily today, but it isn't just fashion. And maybe next time we can get into another part of the sustainability.
That would be amazing. Yeah,
that would be great. That would be. Carol, thank you so much for coming on again. And
you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for having me and having another delightful conversation.
Always. And I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
There we go. I love this. And can I use the content you sent me in the document too?
Yeah, no, more than happy for you to do that. And as I said, I'll send you the links over to Edie's site and also to the True Earth site as well.
Okay, good.
Which is the detergent.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be able to, like, when I do this and put it up, I think I'll put it on the blog first, but then I will talk about it on LinkedIn and tag a few of the young women I know who might be interested in it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome as always. And just to let you know, I'm not sure what your timings are, but I'm actually heading off on holiday towards the end of next week, and I'll be away for a couple of weeks and a digital detox.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. You do that. When you come back, you can check the blog. It'll be there. And again, I really see that maybe once a month or something we could get together and do this. Think about it.
I think that would be great.
It would be
absolutely
so fabulous. So
brilliant. All right. Thank you very much. And I hope you're soon feeling better with your allergies and everything.
Yeah,
all right. Take care. Bye for now.